Hey everybody, welcome to Workforce Gaming. I am Brad, here with Doug.
Hey.
Xenoblade Chronicles 3, aka the 2022 Game of the Year.
Yeah, I can't really argue with that. Yeah, that is true. It won a lot of Game of the Years.
It won mine, and that's the important one. Finally got its big, giant story DLC. So now at this point, all of the Xenoblade games have a big chunk of DLC. And this one is kind of unique as it is the culmination of all things Xenoblade Chronicles over the last dozen years or so.
Is that weird? Isn't that usually a bad thing where the DLC is like the like the penultimatum thing?
Well, okay, so it serves two purposes, which I think is very unique. If you've played only Xenoblade Chronicles 3, it fills in some of the history of the world of Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Now,
okay, sure.
I think it's important to preface here that it is almost impossible to talk about this without there being some spoilers for Xenoblade 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to do my best to avoid them, but some of it is just like, this is the culmination of all three of those games. So if you're going to talk about it, you need to go in with base knowledge of what happens in these games. So part of it is this history of Xenoblade Chronicles 3 of, okay, there's this city that serves a big purpose in Xenoblade 3. Where does that come from? There's the Ouroboros, which is this huge power that Noah has in Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and this gives you a little bit more details of where that comes from and how that evolves. So it does a good job of filling in kind of this backstory of 3, but it also serves this purpose of going, okay, kind of the crux of Xenoblade 3 is that the worlds of 1 and 2 are combining and being drawn together. We won't go into any more details than that because that is kind of spoilers for all of the games, but that's kind of what's happening. So basically what this is it's going, okay, what happens 1,000 years in this world where these worlds are combining?
Oh, interesting.
To create this. And that's where kind of some of the cool stuff comes in because kind of the big main thing of this is you get Rex and Shulk from 1 and 2 coming into the world of 3. And basically, because this is kind of when the worlds are starting to combine, those two are there as part of that.
Okay.
To kind of serve this purpose, to kind of shepherd along what's happening here and some of your ultimate goals in 3. So it kind of does this weird thing where it's going, okay, like the big thing of 3 is we're bringing the worlds together. Okay, let's talk about what's happening before that starts happening. How can we bring those two worlds more into this? Because Xenoblade 3 really, up until the very end, doesn't get too much into that. And this gets a little bit more into what happened with some of the characters from 1, what happens with some of the characters from 2. So if you've played the whole series, you do get kind of that culmination feeling of like, whew, okay. And there's lots of like little subtle hints and nods of like, oh, is that who that is? I think that's who that is. That kind of thing. And you get some really cool things. Like when Rex shows up, it's like one of the most badass scenes in like any game ever where he just like pops in where you're getting like the shit kicked out of you and he does the like, I'm gonna come in and save. And you're like, oh shit, that's right. Lots of cool stuff like that.
See, that's the type of fan service I want to get. Like, I want more. It sounds like the ultimate like fan service game without being like the weird fan service. But like what fan service was like when we were kids, which meant like Mega Man was shooting like Ryu. Like that's the type of fan service I like. Not whatever weird fan service is now, but it just kind of sounds like that's what this is.
Yes, it's a lot of that, like where it's like the bad guy from 3 is here because things from 3, so he's here. And Rex and Shulk from Xenoblade 1 and 2 are fighting the bad guy from 3, who also is connected to other things that, again, we won't get into with spoilers. But it works so well in both aspects. I think that's what's really cool about it. It is the kind of best of Xenoblade as a series and some of the best of 3.
Does it feel like Xenoblade 3 was incomplete and this is like a weird epilogue?
Oh, no, absolutely not.
Okay, so this isn't like the missing piece like Xenoblade 3 ends on like some sort of, it's like no Xenoblade 3 end and here's just an interesting epilogue kind of thing.
It's a prequel, so it's a prologue basically, but
Okay.
Yeah, it's like 1,000 years in the past. So the characters you play as, it's actually kind of cool. There's one point where you're in the city in 3 where the characters from this DLC show up as statues, as like the founders of these parts. So like, if you go back to 3, you can see Matthew's the main character, and you can find his statue there. There's statues that are now very clearly Shulk and Rex in this area that you explore in 3. So again, it's a prequel. It's not, there's nothing here that makes 3 feel more complete. It's just kind of a more deeper explanation. That's what Xenoblade's done a really good job with all these DLCs. It was the same thing with Torna, where it's like, it's more, you liked this. Here's just more exposition about what it is.
Gotcha.
Here's more of where this came from. Here's more of why this is. Here's more of how this happened. And it's just it's so cool. Nobody does cutscenes like Xenoblade. Like some of these cutscenes are just batshit crazy, and they're amazing in every single possible way. I mentioned the Rex one. There's a really good one where one of the characters kind of that you start with, and part of it is Matthew trying to find a sister who's disappeared, and you kind of learn more about what happens to his sister as you go through, because she's kind of this huge crux in why the worlds are combining. And there's a scene where kind of you're like, you sit with her and she just sits like in this like, they promised me this stuff and this stuff didn't happen, and it's like this 10-minute long thing of her just like succumbing to this darkness of this world and how like empty this world is. And it's one of those where like, oh my god, this is so intense, and it's so good. And just like 3, like it deals with a lot of dark stuff. One of the main things in 3 is that in this world you live for 10 years and you only live longer by killing more people. So a lot of what this does is explore like, okay, there were people when this world was created who kind of got out of that system, and how do they view some of these things that are happening in 3. So you get a very different perspective on flame clocks, on these 2 warring factions, on this 10-year life cycle that's in 3, which is really cool.
I mean, that's awesome. I mean, did it feel like, is this just like hey, this is like for the Xenoblade fans who've been following the series forever kind of thing, and like, you know, to really appreciate this thing you need to play 1 and 2 and then play 3 and all that? Does X play in this, by the way? Or no?
There's one, and kind of slight spoiler, there's one part where you hear like a broadcast, and I'm pretty sure it was referencing X, but I'm not 100% sure, because it's been it's been 8 or 9 years since I've played X.
Like, I'm here
too. It's more like a background. You're like, wait a minute, was that talking about this? Because you know, you gotta get all these worlds coming together. But It does a great job of taking the combat of 3, just making it feels tighter. The combat in 3, I think I talked about in our original review of that, is just so good, so fun. It's so tight. It works so well. The way you build things, it's all here again. They do a couple new pieces to add some customization with characters gaining a new accessory slot where you can kind of mess around with your chain attacks a little bit more, so you can kind of build things a little bit better, which is really cool. The one new thing that is kind of cool, because I think open world DLC, I think, always kind of has this like, okay, it's going to be small, there's not going to be a lot to do.
Yeah.
What they have with this is they have what are called affinity goals, where basically you gain bonus skills by like doing open world things. So it's every time you meet a new monster, you get 5 affinity points, which you can use to like then like go to a skill tree. Every time you find a new place, you get 5. You kill 6 of each monsters, you get 20. So it's just doing things in the game where it's just kind of this natural, like, well, we want you to explore this world, and we know that like it's a smaller chunk, it's, you know, a quarter the size of Xenoblade 3, but there's still reasons to explore. There's still a lot going on. It's still really cool, and it's a really cool way to just take, you know, the generic like, you leveled up, here's some stat boosts, and go, okay, you have some points, you have freedom to kind of distribute them among the characters as you want, pick your things. Much more of like a, I don't know, just here's a list, take your pick out of the list, versus like, you got to get this one to this one to this one to this one. Just no, you got points. Here's your chunk. Grab them.
I've noticed a lot of my favorite open world games recently, like when you do stuff, it kind of like, instead of like you get unique, because I feel like a lot of open world games will fall in the thing of like, you do this side mission and it only benefits this side mission to go further and further by getting this unique currency that's only applied to this side mission. I think that the ones that I've liked recently is kind of what you're saying. It's like where you get this kind of like shared currency that you can use for leveling up in any way you choose, as opposed to getting, you know, one type of thing and required to go this deep into a single side mission or single thing.
Yeah, and at no point does it like ever feel forced. Like, I mean, I did it a few times just to kind of like, oh, okay, like there's like, you get it to like enhance your skills and things like that, or learn a new skill, or like get new buffs. And it's just like, okay, like I'm kind of getting my ass kicked. Like, oh, let's go explore this place for 10 minutes. And you can do it quick enough because they're simple enough things. Like just, oh, you found a new monster. Here's some points. Oh, you went to a new spot. Here's some points. It's not like, I think a lot of other ones where it's like, you need to climb the tower and you need to go kill, or you need to go do 7 side missions. It's just simple stuff that you would just do naturally if you were exploring the world. It's just a really good hook to get you to move around the world a little bit more, which I think is really, really good. And something like this where you're thinking DLC, I'm not going to be here for 120 hours.
Yeah. Is that, so, I mean, the thing I really liked about Burning Shores was the trimmed down Horizon Forbidden West. Does the trimming down of Xenoblade 3 really benefit it, or
I think it works it works as what it is. I don't think like Xenoblade 4, which shouldn't exist, would not be good like this size. Like I think we talked in Burning Shores where it's like it would be nice just to have a lot of these kind of like island hopping Aloy where she's just doing this thing and then this thing and then this thing. I think Xenoblade benefits a lot more from the big world.
The giant map,
This this does feel a little bit more constricted where it's like all this stuff seems like it's happening in a really small space. And that seems weird because all the stuff in the other game I was like felt like I was traversing this entire world, and this very much just feels like nah, like you're just in this state. You're not in the whole country. You're just in this state of the place. So it's good. It's really good. I think it improves on 3 in every way. It's a great, if it is the conclusion, which I'm pretty sure it is, I would assume it's the conclusion of this whole trilogy here of 3 games, 3 DLCs. It's just a really good way for it to go out. It's probably one of the best overall pieces of Xenoblade content. I'd put it right up there with the main game of 3 as some of the best Xenoblade. It's fun to play. The exploration's great. The characters are great. Rex and Shulk, it's so fun to see just because they're like 30 years older than they were in the game. So some of the like weird, like Rex especially is kind of immature in Xenoblade 2. So seeing like old, like mature, gritty Rex who's like been through the shit, like they work so well. Their characterization is perfect for who they are, but who they would be in 30 years of dealing. It's done so well. I love it. It's great. If you played Xenoblade, you should try it. I think, to your point, I think if you only played 3, I don't think you'd have quite as much of a connection, but just overall, it's incredible. It's amazing. We're 2 for 2 on big DLCs this year.
yeah, true.
But we are Workforce Gaming. We try and post new videos every Monday. Subscribe to our channel, leave a comment, and we will see you later.
Bye.